that Diana, Princess of Wales, has in fact been killed in that car accident.
Actually, it's interesting. Sounds rather sort of bizarre, but I did go to Diana's coffin the day after I'd written it.
She lit up every room, every camera lens, and every headline. Then, in Paris, that light went out. Princess Diana's departure shook the globe. For 27 years.
You didn't believe she was dead?
For a long time. I just refused to accept that she was gone.
Her final resting place, hidden away for decades, sealed tight, until now. The tomb has been quietly reopened, and what lies inside has unearthed more questions than answers. Now, before we dive in, be sure to hit the like button below. Silent return to Diana's tomb. The decision to reopen Princess Diana's tomb came after months of discussion and pressure, not just from the public, but also from within the scientific and legal communities. This wasn't a dramatic royal move. It was a step driven by questions that never really went away.
We have seen throughout Britain and around the world an overwhelming expression of sadness.
An independent team of forensic experts, without any influence from the royal family, was brought in to examine her remains using modern technology. The team was led by Dr. Amelia Carver, a well-known forensic anthropologist with a history of working on high-profile cases. Her role wasn't to stir controversy, but to get answers. According to her, this is about truth and accuracy, not drama. When they opened the tomb, the lead-lined coffin was in the same condition as it had been decades ago. That lead coffin had helped slow down decomposition, which meant the remains were still in good enough condition for advanced forensic analysis, something that wasn't possible in 1977. With today's tools, investigators were able to study her injuries in far more detail. Most of what they found backed up the original reports. Diana suffered multiple broken bones, internal bleeding, and blunt force trauma, all in line with what you'd expect from a serious car crash. But then the team found a few things that didn't quite add up. Some injuries appeared inconsistent with the known crash details. A few showed signs of having been made after the impact, not during it. That suggested a possible movement or even handling after the crash. And then came another red flag: missing information in Diana's post-crash medical files. Several key entries from the hospital records were either blank or had been removed altogether. The team didn't jump to conclusions, but the questions grew louder. Why were those records incomplete? Why didn't all the injuries match the official story? These weren't vague rumors anymore. They were physical clues, sitting in front of scientists trained to notice when things don't fit. Secret letter. Among the items buried with the Princess of Wales was a small jewelry box. Nothing about it stood out at first glance, just a modest, elegantly crafted container. But what it held told a story more powerful than any photograph or official report. Inside was a fragile, yellowed piece of paper, carefully folded, almost as if it had been hidden away for protection. The handwriting was unmistakably Diana's, flowing, emotional, and personal. The note itself has never been made public, but those who have seen it say the message revealed deep emotional unrest in the final months of her life. Diana had been grappling with an overwhelming sense of isolation. Despite being one of the most photographed women in the world, she felt invisible to those who mattered most. After her divorce from Prince Charles, she was trying to rebuild her life, traveling, working on charitable missions, and forming a relationship with Dodi Fayed. But beneath the surface, she was exhausted and emotionally raw. Friends described her as increasingly anxious, feeling watched, and plagued by a sense that something terrible was on the horizon. The note in the box hinted at that fear. Diana believed she was being targeted, though she couldn't say by whom or why. She once told her lawyer and her butler, Paul Burrell, that someone was planning an accident in her car. Whether it was paranoia or prophecy remains unclear, but the emotions behind the words were real: fear, loneliness, and a desperate plea for safety in a world that no longer felt safe. This handwritten letter, buried with her, felt like a silent scream. Diana may not have been able to stop what was coming, but she tried to leave behind a trace of what she felt, so that someone, someday, might understand that her death wasn't just a tragic car crash. It was the culmination of fear, pressure, and a woman who knew deep down that she was running out of time. Tokens buried with her. When Princess Diana was laid to rest, the world grieved a loss that felt both deeply personal and painfully public. But hidden beneath the surface of global mourning were private details, small, delicate items buried with her that offered a quiet, powerful glimpse into her emotional world in those final days. These weren't just tokens. They were pieces of her soul. Tucked inside her hands was a gold locket she had treasured. Inside were tiny photographs of her two sons, William and Harry. That locket wasn't chosen by chance. It symbolized everything Diana had fought for: her love for her boys, her protective instincts, and her determination to give them a life filled with warmth and compassion, far from the cold formality of royal tradition. Her bond with them had only deepened after her separation from Prince Charles, and the locket felt like a final embrace, a mother keeping her children close, even in death. Another item placed with her was a small crystal charm engraved with the words, "Always believe." At first glance, it seemed like a simple keepsake, but for Diana, who had spent most of her adult life under a harsh spotlight, it meant much more. It was a symbol of her quiet strength, the ability to endure heartbreak, betrayal, and relentless media pressure, yet still cling to hope. Diana had once said that she wanted to be the queen of people's hearts. This charm captured that spirit, a whisper of optimism amid chaos. Choosing her burial place. When Princess Diana died in a car crash on 31st August 1997, the world was heartbroken, but for her family, especially her brother Charles Spencer, grief was only part of the struggle.
Diana remained throughout a very insecure person at heart, almost childlike in her desire to do good for others.
Figuring out where and how to bury her was a much harder task than most people realize. Diana wasn't buried in a royal tomb or church. Instead, Charles decided she would be laid to rest on a small island in the middle of a lake at their family's Althorpe estate, the place where she grew up. But this decision wasn't just about beauty or childhood memories. It was about safety, privacy, and peace. There was so much emotion and chaos everywhere, Charles later told the BBC. I was really worried about where we could safely bury her. He feared people might try to visit her grave too often, or, even worse, disturb it. So he chose Oval Lake, a quiet island surrounded by water and trees. For the funeral, a bridge was built to carry her to the island. Afterward, it was removed to stop anyone from walking over. Charles said the lake acts as a barrier. The water and muddy ground make it hard for people to get close. That's exactly what he wanted. He also wanted her sons, William and Harry, to have a private place where they could visit their mother in peace. The path to the island is lined with 36 oak trees, one for each year of Diana's life. Family members, including the Queen and Prince William, helped plant them. Though the grave itself is not open to the public, visitors can pay their respects nearby at a memorial called the Temple, which shows some of Diana's own words and a message from Charles's speech at her funeral. For a while, there was even a museum at Althorpe showing her dresses, jewelry, letters, and videos. It closed in 2014, but the estate is still open to the public during the summer. But in order for us to understand the shocking findings, we must understand the theories that were thrown out as conspiracies. Operation Paget. In 2008, a decade after Princess Diana's tragic accident, Mohammed Al-Fayed, father of Dodi Fayed, made headlines with a chilling claim. Diana was pregnant, and she and Dodi were about to marry. According to him, their relationship wasn't just frowned upon, it was sabotaged. He insisted that the royal family, particularly Prince Philip and Prince Charles, opposed the idea of Diana marrying a Muslim. That opposition, he said, led to a sinister plot. Al-Fayed didn't stop at naming the royal family. In court, he pointed fingers at Prince Philip, Prince Charles, former Prime Minister Tony Blair, and even Diana's own sister, Sarah McCorquodale. His accusations also swept in high-ranking police officials and the CIA, suggesting a massive cover-up involving government agencies and royal insiders. Though the royal family never publicly addressed his claims, their silence did little to calm the storm. Suspicion grew after Diana's embalming, which conspiracy theorists like Richard Beer suggested was carried out quickly to prevent pregnancy tests. But Operation Paget, a massive official investigation, tested blood from the crash site and found no signs of pregnancy hormones. Still, the rumors swirled. People wanted answers. Delayed ambulance arrival, wiped security cameras, and a quickly cleaned crash site only fanned the flames. Diana herself had told her butler and spiritual advisor that she feared for her life. And in her now famous 1995 BBC interview, she confessed to feeling threatened, comments that later seemed haunting. Then came questions about the driver, Henri Paul. He had only made about $35,000 a year, yet had over $200,000 in cash and savings when he died. Former MI6 agent Richard Tomlinson suggested Paul may have been an informant, possibly even paid to cause the crash. But investigators found no evidence linking his wealth to intelligence agencies, pointing instead to income from rental properties. Another puzzle was the mysterious white Fiat Uno that clipped Diana's car in the tunnel. Paint traces proved there had been contact, and some speculated the driver was French photographer James Anderson, rumored to have MI6 ties. Anderson denied any involvement and claimed he was home with his wife. But in 2000, he was found lifeless in a burned-out car. This incident was ruled a natural death, though many believed otherwise. Adding to the mystery, a witness claimed to see a bright flash just before the crash, something MI6 allegedly used in operations to disorient drivers. However, French and British investigations both dismissed this detail, finding no evidence of a flash. What they did find was that Paul had been drinking and taking prescription drugs. He was speeding, and no one in the car, including bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones, the sole survivor, had been wearing a seatbelt. Embalming question. Among the many twists surrounding Princess Diana's tragic accident, one strange detail has kept conspiracy theories alive for decades: the decision to embalm her body almost immediately after she died. Mohammed Al-Fayed, father of Dodi Fayed, strongly believed it wasn't just a matter of preserving dignity. He claimed it was a deliberate act to hide a pregnancy. His belief? That Diana was carrying Dodi's child, and someone didn't want the world to ever know. On the surface, it sounds like a scene from a political thriller. But the question remains, was there really a reason to act so fast? According to Operation Paget, the official UK inquiry was an exceptionally hot day in Paris. Diana's body was kept in a small, unused room near the emergency unit at Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital because the mortuary was located far across the hospital grounds. Staff placed dry ice and air conditioning units in the room to cool it down. But these measures weren't enough. The intense heat was taking its toll. Adding pressure, Diana's sisters and Prince Charles were scheduled to view the body that afternoon, before returning her to the UK. President Jacques Chirac and his wife also wanted to pay their respects. Presenting the Princess of Wales in a deteriorated state wasn't an option. The hospital, under immense pressure, decided to go ahead with the embalming, but did so without waiting for the proper legal documents. Instead, they received verbal approval from Police Superintendent Martine Montet. The legal paperwork required by French law was signed only after the embalming had taken place. While this may have been a matter of urgency and appearance, the unusual timing and the missing official clearance gave fuel to Al-Fayed's claims. However, Dr. Robert Chapman, who performed the post-mortem in the UK, later said the embalming fluids wouldn't have affected a pregnancy test. If Diana had been pregnant, there would have been physical signs in her uterus or ovaries. None were found. Still, the question isn't just about biology, it's about timing. Why embalm her so quickly, before the paperwork was in order? Why not wait just a few more hours? If it were only about preserving her appearance, why not document the condition and decisions more clearly? A race against time. One of the most puzzling details is the time it took to get her from the crash scene to the hospital. The first emergency call was logged at 12:26 a.m., but the ambulance didn't reach the hospital until 2 a.m. That's an hour and 40 minutes for a crash that happened just a few miles away. To understand this, we have to look at how the French emergency system works. Unlike in the UK or the US, where the goal is often to rush the patient to the hospital, the French system follows the stay and play approach. That means doctors try to stabilize the patient right there, in the ambulance, before moving them. The idea is to give the best care immediately, not just rush to a hospital and hope for the best. But here's where things get strange. The fire brigade arrived within minutes. 2 police officers were first on the scene at around 12:30 a.m., and the firefighters followed shortly after. Dr. Jean-Marc Martineau, a specialist in emergency care, reached the scene around 12:40 a.m. Diana was still alive but badly hurt. She was taken out of the car by 1 a.m., suffered a cardiac arrest, was resuscitated, and finally placed in the ambulance at 1:18 a.m. Yet the ambulance didn't leave until 1:40 a.m., more than 20 minutes later. Then, during the short ride to Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital, it made another stop. Why? Dr. Martineau ordered the driver to pull over near Gare d'Austerlitz because Diana's blood pressure had dropped again. He insisted the ambulance drive slowly to avoid sudden movements, worried that speeding up or slowing down too quickly could worsen her condition. And here's another question that fuels conspiracy theories. Why wasn't she taken to Hôtel Dieu Hospital, which was much closer? With Diana still alive when the ambulance arrived at the hospital, some ask whether a faster response could have changed the outcome. Where's the footage? One of the most puzzling parts of Princess Diana's tragic car crash in Paris is the complete lack of CCTV footage showing what actually happened. In a city full of cameras, especially near major roads and tunnels, many people find it strange that not even one camera captured the Mercedes as it sped from the Ritz Hotel to the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, where the fatal crash occurred. This absence has led to years of speculation and conspiracy theories. Back in 2006, The Independent reported that more than 14 CCTV cameras were positioned around the Pont de l'Alma underpass. You'd expect at least one of them to have recorded something, especially since this area is so central and busy. But not a single image of the crash was found. That alone raised plenty of eyebrows. Judge Hervé Stéphan, the man assigned to investigate the crash just days after it happened, ordered a full search of all available video footage along the Mercedes route. Lieutenant Eric Gigu of the Brigade Criminelle led the operation. His team retraced the car's path multiple times, looking for every camera that might have caught something. In the end, they found 10 cameras, but none had any helpful footage. Most were security cameras pointed only at the doors of nearby buildings. They weren't city-owned but run privately by building owners, and none captured the road. Even more frustrating was the traffic camera located directly above the tunnel where the crash occurred. That camera belonged to Paris's urban traffic unit. But here's the odd part. The department shut down at 11 p.m. every night. There were no overnight workers, and no recordings were made. The police could view the camera live, but they couldn't control it or rewind anything. So, was it all just a coincidence? A case of poor timing and bad luck? Or was there something more going on? The fact that a high-speed crash involving the world's most famous woman wasn't caught on any of the city's cameras remains a chilling gap in the story. The shocking connection. Now that we know the theories, let's start with what was immediately noticed. Her body had been unusually well preserved. Even accounting for embalming, one of the mortuary workers present reportedly commented that the preservation was startling, considering the circumstances. This sparked fresh interest in the theory that Diana was embalmed too quickly, possibly to erase signs of an early pregnancy. One anonymous source claimed that traces of embryonic tissue were surprisingly well preserved in the pelvic area, which raised quite concern. Could it have been the very evidence her supporters said had been rushed to be hidden? Another theory tied to British intelligence seemed to resurface when officials inspected the personal items buried with her. Among them was the black cocktail dress Diana wore the night of the crash. Many remember how striking she looked in it, but close inspection revealed that a section of the fabric had been snipped away near the hem, as if taken for analysis. Theories about MI6 tailing her that night gained traction in the 2000s, and this peculiar cut in the fabric added eerie fuel. Why would someone remove a sample? And more importantly, when? Then there was the locket buried with her, engraved with D and M intertwined, a detail not previously made public. Dodi and Diana had reportedly spoken about marriage just weeks before the crash, and finding a locket with those initials gave weight to the speculation that their bond had been far deeper than acknowledged. If she truly was planning a life with him, was that a motive for silencing her? Even more unsettling was a folded, handwritten letter, reportedly in Diana's handwriting, buried beneath her favorite photograph of William and Harry. The letter mentioned words like hunted, fearing, and an accident. It's nearly identical in wording to the infamous 1995 note she gave to her butler, Paul Burrell. Why would it be placed with her body, unless someone feared it might disappear otherwise? There was also a subtle but chilling final discovery, a rosary gifted by Mother Teresa, reportedly tucked into her right hand. While religious tokens aren't unusual, what stood out was the fact that Diana passed away just days before the sainted nun, and some observers have long speculated about the strange symbolism of their deaths being so close together. Was this a spiritual connection or a quiet message about peace after turmoil? After 27 years of silence, Diana's reopened tomb didn't offer closure. It deepened the mystery. Each item uncovered wasn't just sentimental. It whispered about untold stories, fears she couldn't voice, and secrets that may have been buried not just beneath stone, but under years of silence. The good she left behind. Princess Diana didn't need a crown to be called the People's Princess. Long after her accident, people still remember her kindness, honesty, and how she made others feel seen and heard. She used her title, not for show, but to shine a light on issues many tried to ignore. One of her most powerful moments came when she shook hands with a man living with AIDS without wearing gloves. This was at a time when fear and false ideas about the disease were everywhere. That simple act broke down walls and helped change the way the world saw HIV and AIDS. She made people feel human again, not ashamed or unwanted. Her efforts helped reduce stigma and brought attention to the need for care and research. She also stood up for those affected by landmines. Diana walked through active minefields in Angola to raise awareness. That image, her walking in protective gear, showed the world how serious the issue was. Her support led to real change, pushing governments to sign treaties banning landmines. She didn't just talk about problems, she showed up, even when it was dangerous or unpopular. Diana's love for children was clear. She visited hospitals, hugged young patients, and sat with them without worrying about appearances. Her visits weren't just quick photo ops. She spent time with the kids, listened to them, and tried to lift their spirits. Her legacy also lives on through her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. Both have followed in her footsteps, focusing on causes close to her heart. They often speak about how their mother taught them to care deeply and stay grounded. Princess Diana changed the idea of what it means to be royal. She wasn't just about duty, she was about heart. We hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more amazing stories.